Hi everyone, this is Justin Birubé. I'm the Ontario West and North Desk. Hope you're all doing well.
Yes, and I'm Gabriel Bourget. I'm the Quebec and Atlantic Desk. So I will do the French presentation, but I will leave Justin do the English one.
Yeah. So please save any questions for the end of the presentation. But for now, we're going to start right here. This presentation, we're going to be doing a rundown of CRA 101. So we're going to be talking about basic casework, the frequently asked questions, and what's the other services that's available for MP offices. You could contact Gab and I with the numbers on this slide, and you could also fax us as well too. So we're going to start off with responsibilities between National Revenue and Finance, since we've been getting a lot of questions and confusion about what's the responsibilities between the two. We'll be also discussing about casework and what's the steps that you can follow to do CRA casework. We'll also be talking about the services that we have here with the desks and with the Minister's office, and along with the frequently asked questions with the disability tax credit, charities, taxpayer relief provisions, and collections. So starting off, responsibilities between the National Revenue and Finance. So the CRA, we're meant to administer tax laws for the Canadian government and for most provinces and territories except Quebec. We also administer various social, economic, and economic incentives programs offered throughout the tax system. And so the difference as well that we're going to see with the Ministry's Finance is that they develop federal tax policies. So whenever we get a question about a policy change or a policy proposal or a change in the Income Tax Act, that would go to the Ministry of Finance. As much as we would like to, at CRA, would like to change the tax law and help constituents, it all falls on the Ministry of Finance to make such amendments on the Income Tax Act. So when normally, if you have any casework and such, send it our way to the desks or to the problem resolution program, which I'll discuss later. Otherwise, if it's about changing tax laws, send it over to finance. So starting for casework, the first step for having establishing casework is to meeting with this constituent and identifying their issue. When you meet with the constituent, there could be a mix of emotions because quite often nobody's going to come to you with happy about taxes. It's great to be empathetic and understanding with everyone, but it's also a good idea to not also pick a side right away. You need the full story before you have to advocate for a constituent, because there might be some parts of the story that they're not telling you. So while you're meeting with the constituent, it's a good idea to have a copy of their documents. So if they have a copy of a notice of assessment or a notice of determination to show what's their interactions with the agency, it's great to have a photocopy of that and keep that in your records. It's also great to have other copies of forms as well too, and correspondence between the agency and the taxpayer. Some taxpayers send letters to the agency detailing about the issues that they've been trying to resolve. And it's also great to have a case summary and also the questions that the constituent have, so you could look into, have a better understanding what to bring up when you bring this forward to PRP or to our office at the desk. Along with that, if the constituent also is proposing a change in tax law, as some of them will, you're open to send that over to finance. So before the constituent leaves, you also would need to have an authorization form for parliamentarians, or RC 161. Some offices also have older tax authorization forms, and we're open to accept those as well too. What we need for these forms to be filled out, because we've seen quite a few forms not being completed, and so it makes the process longer for us to look into the inquiries of the constituent in your office. So it's always make double sure to check that the name of the MP is on the authorization, that they have the full name of the constituent and their contact information, to have their social security number, and also have a business number, because you might have some businesses that are going through tax issues. And another one that I see too often is the signature and date. There's some people that forget the signature and date. So it's very important for you to just look it through, because it would save time for everyone in order to find a solution for the constituent's problem. So we encourage you to send this authorization by fax only at our number 613-952-6608. The reason why is because it's the most secure way to transfer information, very sensitive information of the taxpayer. The last thing that we need is to have taxpayer information being leaked and going out into the public, because we have provisions in place, specifically Article 241 of the Income Tax Act, where we have to protect every taxpayer's information. Please also note that the authorization form is valid for a period of 6 months. So if it's older than 6 months old, you'll have to get a new form signed by the constituent. Next step, once you have the authorization form, you can send it to the Problem Resolution Program, or PRP. So you'll be hearing a lot about PRP. During my time as a constituency staffer, I spoke to PRP every week, just about every day, in order to inquire about tax issues. So they would be your first port of contact of any kind of tax issue. And if you require any phone numbers, if you don't have the contact information for PRP, please give Gab and I an email or a phone call after this meeting, and we'll be more than happy to give you the appropriate number, because PRP have different regional offices. So what the Problem Resolution Program does is they specialize in responding disputes, for example, financial hardships, recurring problems that the constituent has, errors that might be caused from the CRA, and humanitarian grounds issues. So first, I advise you to send the authorization form to PRP once you have one signed and filled out by the constituent, and then you could give them a call depending on the urgency of the issue, and they'd be looking into the issue as soon as they can to help you out. And to give you the appropriate information, to give you the full story about what's been going on with this constituent. Normally, if it's not that pressing of an issue, you could send the fax with a case summary, and the PRP would get back to you with a response to confirm that they will be looking into this inquiry within 5 working days, and they would give also a detailed status of the file within 15 working days. They would normally communicate this by fax, but they're also open to speak over by phone as well too. Now, if you're having issues with PRP, say they're not able to give you the information, or if they're going through roadblocks, you could go to speak with the desks with Gab and I at the minister's office as a means of last resort. Because there's some situations like listed over here with the PRP, for example, the DTC or collections cases. Sometimes PRP can't really go too far with those cases because they have some roadblocks that's limiting them. For example, with collections, they could only provide a case summary of the whole history of what's been happening with the constituent and their interaction with the CRA. PRP is not allowed to get involved with collections cases or to speak with collection agents, as it is a very sensitive matter. We'll explain that in more detail later. So once you send the casework over to our offices, we will be also following up with the MP offices as soon as we can, but also we have to speak with the agency as well too in order to get the full rundown, the full case summary, and see what would be the options for the constituent. The list of expectations for our office, the minister's office is set up in a way where we avoid political interference, because the minister's office is not allowed to get to be politically involved with any case. It has to go through the agency, and the agency makes the final call on how the case will be dealt with, or what's the options available to the constituent. The way we do this is that we have a dedicated caseworker from the public service that we send cases to and that we can speak with, instead of having us speaking directly with other public officials in order to avoid these kind of political pressures that could happen. So as much as the constituent might be pushing you a lot, it's important to respect the deadlines in order to avoid these kind of political pressures, because having been a constituency staffer myself, I understand the pressures that you all have to go under depending on how belligerent or how difficult the constituent could be. Now we'll discuss about the FAQs. So first of all, we have the disability tax credit. This is a very touchy subject that I'm sure a lot of you hear about. But just for the record, even though we hear, as a constituent staffer, we hear about a lot of the worst case scenarios or people not getting finding eligibility for DTC, the CRA has completed close to 250,000 of applications in the tax year 2018, and 85% of those were approved. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware that CRA is not rejecting DCC applications left and right. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that as consist staffers, we're often going to hear the worst case scenarios. Nobody is going to come to us whenever they have a good case going their way. So it's important to know that the system is working. Now, for the cases where it's being difficult for DTC, of course, it's important for the constituent to have a complete form of the T2201 for DTC, and have it also filled out by the health professional. A lot of cases that I've seen in the past is there's sometimes a miscommunication between the health professional, the constituent, and the CRA. Sometimes a lot of health professionals write very, very minimal information about what's the issue that the constituent has in order to make them eligible for DTC. So that's often a lot of cases that I've helped out where, say, a health professional sometimes would say, oh, they're just having a sore leg. Well, they need to explain more about how this sore leg affects the livelihood, everyday livelihood of that constituent, where it's affecting about 90% of their day, for example, where they have to take treatment for so many hours. And these are the kind of things that the CRA is looking for. And also, they're also done on a case-by-case scenario. So it is encouraged to speak with PRP and also with our office, so we could look into the eligibility and the issues with these cases. Because sometimes the agency would speak with the health professional by phone if they don't have a better understanding from what's written on the form. And sometimes I've seen a lot of cases being turned around for that kind of reason. So for next, we'll be talking about charities and nonprofit organizations. So we do have a PRP line dedicated for charities, for those organizations that are having problems with their application to have status, or if they're having litigation issues. Consider offices and MPs have a dedicated line specifically for charities. Make sure that this kind of number and numbers for PRP, they're meant for MP offices only. Do not give them out to constituents. Otherwise, we would never really get our job done because there would be too many people calling. Next stop is the taxpayer relief program. So this provision is to help constituents that are in a very tough place, that aren't able to pay their taxes or the amounts owing. So the CRA does understand that taxpayers could be in a bit of a bind and they aren't able to meet their tax obligations because it's beyond their control. Such cases would be extraordinary circumstances, like say a natural disaster or a problem in the family, or it could be actions of CRA or an inability to pay due to financial hardship. This taxpayer relief is meant to waive the penalties and interest on an amount owing. It doesn't mean that it would completely wipe out the debt that the constituent has. That issue could be looked into and more looked into when you speak with PRP, because I've had some cases where, say, a single mother, her child was not properly registered to receive CCB, and so CRA would ask for the amount owing from previous years when that child was receiving CCB, and the mother, for example, could file for taxpayer relief to remove the penalties and the interest, and the remaining debt could be resolved by just filing the full information about the child that was missing from CRA's record. You're open to send that kind of documentation or other information, regardless of the case, to PRP, and they'll be more than happy to file it in and give it to the appropriate official in CRA. Another touchy subject that we hear often is collections. That's where you hear people that's of the problems of the big tax man going after debts owing to the government. But CRA does collect the various types of taxes and debts from individuals, and we're all obliged to pay our taxes. And often these individuals are being looked at by collections, have several chances and many ways of resolving their issues with the taxes, and they had many chances pretty much, and that's something that you could look into when you speak with PRP for a full case summary of how it ended up with the collections agency. So the CRA is a client-focused organization, and we do want the taxpayers to be able to pay their taxes, and sometimes it could be quite a bit of amount owing, and so taxpayers are encouraged to speak with the collections agent, and have some kind of payment plan. So the CRA is open to have a payment plan where they could give so much money per month, and because at the end of the day, we want to have people to be able to pay their taxes, even though it might be an exuberant amount and it might be impossible to pay outright. They could pay on a monthly basis or bi-weekly, whatever is most convenient for the constituent. But if you do have any issues with collections and if you do need advice, Gab and I, we're open to. You could give us a call or an email anytime, and we'll be able to look into the issue and get the full case summary and what would be the best option for that you could give to the constituent. To finish off with the FAQ, there's the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. So it's very relevant now with the tax season. This is a program that you can have free tax clinics in your area. So several organizations, nonprofit organizations, have free tax clinics often for people of low income, and they could. In the CVITP program could also organize a free tax clinic for MP offices. So if your office or your member is interested to have a free tax clinic, they're open to contact the CVITP. You could give me an email or contact me if you'd like to have the specific number for your area, so you could connect. So I could have you connect with them. But we also have links on this PowerPoint of where you can find these free tax clinics in your area, as well as another link for Quebec residents. So we're open for questions. You could type as well too on what you have on the computer. And after that, we'll have the French session at 2 o'clock with Gab. So we could send it out as an infolib to share the PowerPoints.
This is Nick Penner from LRB. The video and the deck will be uploaded to infolib later today. Yeah.
You're welcome. So what's the difference between financial hardship and humanitarian grounds? So humanitarian grounds would be more of an exceptional case, say, it could be quite big. Like say there's a problem in the family, or you have a very serious illness. There's a lot of ways to explain it. But for a financial hardship, it's say for somebody that's of low income, or a single parent that's not able to pay their rent. That's a financial hardship where they're really pressuring on they have a lot of pressure on their finances. And from my experiences as a considered staffer, financial hardship is a pretty good word to bring up with PRP. The second you bring that up, they're going to be looking into ways to expedite the process as soon as possible. Say somebody is not able to get their benefits on time due to a CRA issue, for example, or the form was not properly filled out. You could bring up that they're having a financial hardship because they have debt to pay, they have to pay off their credit card, or they need to pay off their rent, and they're already stretched thin financially. So for the question, with many BC residents came into our office stating that their tax return was withheld because of unpaid MSP. I'll have to get back to you with an answer on that. I don't have the full understanding at the moment, but I'll send you an email later. So if our constituent is proposing a change of tax law, you mentioned to send the inquiry to the Department of Finance. Can you provide a appropriate contact number and email? You would send it to your regional desk of finance. Say for example, if it's for Ontario and the western provinces, that would be for Salman Arif. I could provide you the email as well too if you don't have the list of your regional desks yet. So if anyone is still thinking about putting up a question, I just want to show as well too that we have relevant links. So we have the paper tax packages. I've been hearing a lot about this question as well too, because some offices, since Canada Post this year is not providing tax paper packages this year, MP offices they could provide those packages if they want to. So there's an email that would go directly to the agency. You could ask for as many packages that you want, and they'll send them over to your office as soon as possible. If you have any problems with that, if you're still waiting, and it's been past 2 weeks, just let me know, or also contact Gab as well too if you're from Quebec and Atlantic. We also have links as well for checking CRA processing times, so you could double check in case some constituents would say, oh, I've been on the phone for about an hour, I've been waiting forever. Well, you could check the processing times right over here, and they'll tell you if the average waiting time is 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and they update it every few hours. Along with that, we have a media contact list if you have any questions as well too, but I encourage you to go to the desks if you have any questions, if you need or require any lines and such. And these numbers, the individual inquiries, benefit and business inquiries, these are numbers that you could share to constituents in case they're having a tax issue, because at the end of the day, as a consist staffer, you're not a tax professional or an accountant. And so sometimes if they're really getting into detail about, oh, what do I do with line 331, for example, you could refer them to the individual inquiries or the business inquiries, whatever is relevant for that situation. So if you like to have the new consent form, we could provide that as well too on InfoLib, along with the PowerPoint that we're showing today. Could you, so for the question, anything new for this tax year, could you explain in more details what do you mean by anything new? Well, I don't think there's any changes really compared to other tax years, but I do encourage you, depending, because there's also, it depends on which region that you're coming from as well too. So say if you're from Manitoba, there's the Manitoba tax credit. If you're from Ontario, there's things like the climate action incentive that you should keep in mind to inform constituents. But you could send me an email specifically and I'll look into what's your region, where you're coming from, so I could give you the relevant information that would help you out. No problem. I'll repost our emails and the questions if you like. I'm just gonna, I'll just show you at the beginning of the PowerPoint. Here we are. I have clients who have sent original documents for the CRA and it was not returned. So normally CRA is supposed to return original documents, but I would need to speak with you specifically. We could talk over by phone after this meeting or sometime tomorrow, whatever's convenient for you, so we can know what exactly were those documents and such. We're done when nobody else has any questions. Well, if nobody has any more questions, thank you very much for your time. I'm glad that you were able to listen in. The French version will be happening at 2 o'clock, so in about less than 30 minutes with Gabrielle. If you have any other questions that you thought of after this presentation, just send me an email or give me a call as well too, and I'll be more than happy to look into the issue with you or answer your question. Thank you very much.